people wanted to come, if they wanted to go to see what was happening, they had to come in person. And then with COVID, we started, of course, doing everything online for 2 years. And now it's become a necessity.
Right. There's always something changing, and pretty soon it'll be like, what in Japan they have little robots that like do, you can put a little screen on it and they can talk to you, so it's like a little person, but it's a robot. Yeah.
Yeah,
Text is gonna get more and more usage as we go along.
right. Morning. Not all technology is better.
Oh yeah. Some of it is great, but not all of it.
Not all of it.
Some of it, I think, doesn't do what I want it to do.
Is he gonna be able to write up something by next week? We gotta have a backup. Hey, I would have.
I have to meet some people. I'll come back.
Okay. All right. Well, this one doesn't.
Yeah, forwarded, I thought.
I wonder if, I don't even know if that is live anymore, actually. Mark, it's up its own, right?
I think forward
Yeah.
toward.
Okay. I don't know for sure if it's live, but if so, it's on.
So my second question is just a little bit on the timing, or yeah. So okay. So I don't know I have no idea what time it is now.
Okay, it's 5 after 10.
Thanks for sure.
No worries.
Now I know where the fuck is. Okay, so typically, I know that this is 20, 30 minutes and then maybe 45 total, and then release back into, because you start another service at 11, right?
Right.
So is it,
Idea is that you can kind of tailor this to presentation. We still need somebody to use semester. I think if you might generally you'd be 30 to 40 minutes. No, we can maybe 45 minutes, and then. But he's the unusual guy. He makes them go slow, anything.
okay,
He's maybe a math. Teachers will be incorporate have questions. It could be dry. You're on the roll and you get a presentation. You just want to have time for questions, and if people don't have questions, they can stay open.
Yeah, that sounds
If you're
like a great idea.
make you stay, but kind of idea is still maybe 40 minutes of presentation. So if it's shorter, that's
Why don't
fine.
you get it to me for sure?
okay. I plan on doing more interactive of a conversation, and so, because I like hearing where people are. I think that's part of building knowledge, is that it's, in conversation.
So
Yeah.
tailor your presentation to how you want to do it.
Okay. Is there somebody who will give me like a 5-minute warning? Because I don't want to I don't want to hold people if the service is starting. Somebody's going to
Well, that's one of the things, don't be offended if people start to move, if they know that they're going to the next service, they don't, when they get ready to.
Okay, cool.
So you
Cool.
can kind of keep going how you're going, you don't have to let them break your rhythm.
Okay.
You can go on as long as you want. Some people will stay and some people won't.
Okay.
I wanted to introduce myself to you. I'm Carrie Wiggins. Talked to you the other day.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
It's so nice to meet you. I'm really excited to put faces to names. This is good.
Somehow I didn't expect you to be so tall.
Oh yeah. What's funny is I am the shortest person in my family. My brother is 7'2".
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep. And my sister is she's
Years that I've
maybe like 2 or 3 inches taller than me. And then, okay, maybe I'm wrong. My mom might be my height or a little bit shorter. But of all the kids, I'm the shortest kid, which is wild. I'm also the youngest, so my mom used to joke that all the height was taken by my siblings. But yeah, and we love them, but yeah, I'm excited for today. Oh yeah, oh yeah. I'll talk a little bit about that, and we'll tell some stories, and we'll have some good time.
We do get recognition, but
To talk to Reverend Jennifer about community service on time.
It's a great service. We couldn't force her to wrap it up.
No, in general.
I know, because it's the first in gathering, and so they were leading and introducing, and it went a little longer, and, yeah. Hi.
Hey Pat, how are you?
You got the text that I was in the church. So what are we gonna do now?
well, what we've done in the past is just started at 10:10.
Okay.
Yeah, that's been our kind of, so
Think
let me
it's
go and
10:10?
see. Let me go and see
Let's do
if
it.
there's anything more that needs to be done. If so, we'll wait, otherwise we'll just start.
Okay. People will be coming in.
Okay.
Sadly, we didn't get in the announcements. It wasn't verbally given, which it should have been, and it wasn't in the written program. And like I said, I walked out during her sermon, so.
So
And
she's
my
still
choir-
preaching?
She's still preaching. Yeah,
Oh,
so it kind of, it's the first official Sunday back after summer, and it's the two services.
so, I mean, I'm okay to wait until like 10:15-ish.
Okay, I'm gonna say a few things,
Yeah,
then you
because
can
other
introduce the
people come
speaker.
in online.
Oh, okay, yes. That's true.
Okay. All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Mark Miller. George Bledsoe is taking care of the technology, which is always a challenge. We're going to start, we've decided we're going to start at 10:10, whether the service is over or not, and then people just have to come late. So I think that's all I need to say. Pat will introduce our speaker.
Good morning, everybody. We're very happy that Hannah Freeman is with us today. She's new to Milwaukee, and she is a very experienced organizer. So she is our new lead organizer for MICAH, and MICAH stands for Milwaukee Inner City Congregations Allied for Hope. And so she is going to tie in the sermon about how we work for justice as a spiritual practice. So this is a justice-loving church. This is a justice-loving forum group, and she's a justice-loving sister. Welcome, Hannah.
Good morning. Oh, it's nice to see everybody's faces today. It's like a nice day outside. I'm excited to be here with you all. So,
We're gonna have a few more people shortly singing the final hymn downstairs now.
good, the more the merrier. So I want to start off by introducing myself a little bit. Pat talked a little bit about the work that I do now with MICAH, but this has been a journey of mine. I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me, right? Okay, cool. All right. So this work has been a passion that has been developed over time. So what you see up there on the screen is a long list of the different kinds of work, justice work that I've done. I've had, I started in college actually doing food justice work. When I went to college for the first time, I was meeting people who had access to all these fresh fruits and veggies, and they were just casually eating them. And in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, you know how much money that is? That's so expensive. You have to save it. And they'd have, all of these fresh fruits. And I thought to myself, what's going on here? Why is this novel to me, right? Why does this feel so shocking that somebody could, eat mostly fresh fruits and vegetables and not, feel like it's gonna, destroy their wallet. And I started looking deeper into it about how people who are low income have access to fresh fruits and vegetables, what that actually means, and how all of that is tied up with race and income and usually gender. So I started understanding a little bit more about how food justice work, and then I started understanding a little bit more about how economic justice was and wasn't playing out in the United States, and everything just kind of unraveled from there. So ultimately what happened is I ended up with my bachelor's in psychology and also in history. I studied the antebellum South, how slavery began in this country, and how all of that was tied together in our current economy, in our current communities, in our current neighborhoods, how all of that played out. So after that, I decided that I was gonna go and do the work, right? It's not enough to just learn about it, I have to go and do it. So I moved to Tennessee. And I don't know if any of you are from Tennessee. I see it, I love it. Tennessee is this beautiful place full of nature and some really friendly people, but a really poor economy. And particularly when it comes to people of color. So when I moved to Tennessee, I worked out of the mayor's office, and I worked specifically with low-income neighborhoods, public housing, low-income homeowners, things like that. And my role with them was to help them get to a place where they could advocate for themselves with the city. The city, the mayor in particular, had realized that there were lots of people from well-established, usually white neighborhoods who were able to advocate for themselves. They knew what they wanted, they knew what they didn't want, and they knew how to go about getting it. They knew, how to contact their city council person. They knew how to look through the budget to see how they can get their neighborhood's needs met. And a lot of our low-income communities, they didn't really have that capacity. So my job was to go into these low-income neighborhoods, I see your hand, and to actually help them figure out what is the process of advocating for yourself. I did that for 2 years, and I want to pause right there because I see a hand.
Vanderbilt, that's Nashville, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So in my 2 years, something happened to me. I went from understanding what it meant to have equality on an intellectual level to understanding what equality meant on an emotional, spiritual, and psychological level. As I was talking with people in the neighborhood, going door to door, going to meetings, talking with people about what was going on in the community, I started to see a pattern, that it wasn't just that people didn't know how to advocate with their city council person, it was that they felt hopeless. They felt like nobody was gonna listen to them, especially me, right? What did I know? This 18, 20, 22-year-old coming in and saying, you can do this. You deserve access to this. I can make this happen. And they'd look at me and they'd say, bless your heart. Right? If you've ever been in the South, you know that's not what it means on the surface. And I learned what they really meant. They were right. It was very idealistic. I spent 2 years trying to build up communities of color, which were usually the low-income ones. And every time I went back to the office and I had the conversations with people, I faced all of this resistance. Well, why can't this community apply for a neighborhood revitalization grant? Oh, because they're not the right kind, right? I heard that. I heard they'll never be able to make it work, so why should we give them the money in the first place? They don't know what they're doing. They don't really know what they want. We know what they want. So we're going to do what we think is best. We're the experts. Those 2 years taught me more about what it meant to be just than all 18 years that I spent growing up in the church. Because I felt it. I finally understood what it felt like to be experiencing injustice. So I began this journey. What does it actually look like to have justice in our communities? What does it look like for us to have communities where everybody thrives? What's going on here? How do we actually make this happen? So, like any good nerd, I went back to school, and I went to Vanderbilt in Nashville, and I started studying. I went to a program called Community Development in Action. It is out of the Peabody School, which is part of their community development, education, that sort of realm, right? And what I started doing was researching, what does it actually take to create justice? What does it actually take to create equality? The answer to that is power. Community-based power. So I joined with a team of researchers who were studying the effects of neighborhoods, of low-income neighborhoods, who started to build their own power, their own capacity to act, and what that actually did for them. And what we found is that it had profound differences when neighborhoods were actually taking ownership versus receiving services. When they were creating the priorities, when they were creating the services, when they were raising their own money and dictating where that money went, when they were holding elected people's feet to the fire, there was a whole different level of effectiveness than just when, nonprofits, private institutions, or even local governments, state governments, federal governments, when they were just doling out services, saying, here's a food bank, we're going to come by and help you with your taxes. The level of sustainability, the level of impact, everything changed. So I started thinking, okay, what does it look like to do that in practice? The very first thing that I ran into was, how do you actually build power? Well, you start one by one talking to people. So I became a deep canvasser. And I went into red neighborhoods in the middle of Tennessee, and I knock on people's doors and say, hey, I want to talk to you about immigrants. And I learned a lot from those conversations. Most people in my conversations really didn't have a chance to think about what it would look like to live in a community where everyone was treated equally. But when we sat down and talked about it, they cared a lot about what was going on with their immigrant neighbors. They actually weren't at all opposed to their immigrant neighbors, documented or undocumented. And so as I moved forward, I kept asking myself this question of, what does it actually mean to do justice? What does it actually mean to have a community that is not lesser than, that is actually has the same access, the same ownership, the same responsibility as others, right? Regardless of what their privileges are. So when I went to Baltimore, I was organizing a variety of things. I organized a group that was trying to end mass incarceration for youth. I organized youth to get access to transit so that they can get jobs. I organized in community schools so that the community could be engaged. I did all sorts of stuff. And what I was seeing is that we were doing okay. We were making some moves. We were impacting some lives. But we were missing a lot of people from the table. We had an education team with very few parents. Parents really didn't have time for it. We were organizing youth who had been to end mass incarceration, but they were in and out, right? The parents didn't have time. The youth had limitations on how they could show up. So what we were ending up with were a lot of well-intentioned people who actually weren't really sure what it looked like to implement justice because they weren't living those lives. So then, our board, our team, sat down and said, this can't continue. This isn't what it should actually look like to build community power. So what we did was we did a sacred listening campaign inside all of our congregations. And we held conversations with hundreds of people across, 15 congregations. And we came together at the end of that, and we had everybody's priorities thrown up on the wall. We had 10 priorities. And the membership came together and voted for the top 3. One of those was water equity. Now, there was a town in the middle of Caroline County in the eastern shore of Maryland. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Caroline County is the county where Harriet Tubman was enslaved. She would travel into, it was actually the county right next to where Harriet Tubman was enslaved. A very long history of very harsh and very intensive racism. And in a lot of ways, they're still living like that. So we had this little community of Black folks who were living next to a town, and they had been purposefully rezoned out of the town. Originally, 20 years ago, right? So that has public housing, and find out that when individuals in the neighborhood had been going to the town and saying, hey, this is your waste pump. One would say, you don't live in the town 6 years. And for the first year, all we did was research. We had very smart people who were architects and nurses and environmental lawyers and all sorts of great stuff. They had all these skill sets. So we had maps of the terrain. We had data. 100 pages statement, right? This is what's happening. We can see that it's failing.
Court case.
No?
No.
Nothing. We didn't even get the opportunity to send it because we couldn't find anybody, a constituent. You have somebody from that neighborhood. We're not even going to receive this. So we spent a year. So we decided to change tactics. Renters' rights for meeting, where 23 people had issues with the water. They wanted safe places for their kids to be outside. They wanted management not to misplace their rent check so that they would have to pay rent again. When we began talking to people, we realized that this wasn't a water issue. This was a moral campaign. And in this world, we often think about justice in a very black and white way, right? These poor people need to be saved from this landlord, from this management company that is not doing right by them. Or the management's perspective, which was that the tenants were the ones not fixing up, breaking the property, and who should be liable for fixing the property up. That these, people who lived in public housing somehow didn't care about the homes they lived in, and they needed to take responsibility. A lot of the time, we have a black and white version of what it looks like to be just. There's a winner, there's a loser. Sometimes there's multiple losers. There's always one winner. We see that in our politics today. We see it every day in the news, don't we? There's this bad person who does this. There's this bad person who does that. And what we end up with is stuff like this. So I'm sure you all remember George Floyd. And this is just a couple of examples of recent, maybe in the past 2-3 months, headlines. And you can see, right? George Floyd backlash, bail reform, driving homicide case resolve rate down from an ex-detective. This detective is saying that people got so carried away with trying to hold police accountable that it's actually keeping police from doing their jobs. Activists who are saying that change hasn't really happened, that they pushed really hard and they didn't get what they needed. A representative introducing bills to transform the legal system and improve police accountability 5 years later. A business owner who blames the city for the riots that he says destroyed his livelihood. There's always somebody to blame, right? Justice looks different for all of these people. For this detective, justice would have actually looked like getting people who are committing murders. For the activists, it would have looked like police reform. For this representative, it actually looks like police accountability from a legal standpoint. For this business owner, it's creating opportunities for minority business owners to thrive. It doesn't say this in the title of the article, but this man happens to be black, right? And in the article, what he says is that the legacy of this event should be more access for black business owners inside the city, and not just focusing on police accountability or police brutality. Results vary, right? And nobody's really on the same page. The representative says they're pushing accountability. The activists say no, they're not. The police say that it's making their job harder, and business owners are leaving. That's usually what we get in this world, right? Or sometimes you get a vision, this really cool, really amazing story of what could be. It doesn't actually match the reality we live in. Vision, but not necessarily a roadmap to get there. And what I've come to see in all of the work that I've done, talking with people who, feel really opposed to maybe some of the things that I want, in conversations with people who maybe want the same things that I do, but don't know how to get there. Maybe people who know how to get there, but don't actually know what the what is. What I realized is that justice is a practice of relationships. There's a collective knowledge that comes from the conversations we have together and the opportunity to wrestle it out together. Now, don't be out here, putting people in headlocks. But, there is no one path. There's just the path we create together. And that starts with us making the choice to be in deep relationship with one another. So when we started organizing in the Eastern Shore, started really organizing in the Eastern Shore, I would go every single Monday down to that community. I would drive 2 hours one way, and the very first thing I would do is I would park my car and I would knock on every single door, all 42 doors. Some people would want to talk, some people would not. But every Monday, I was knocking on their door. And they knew it. Some of them started meeting me at the door. I got a chance to go to birthday parties with people. I got a chance to celebrate people recovering from illnesses. I got a chance to mourn with people when those illnesses got worse. I got a chance to see people put the hard work in to take care of their kids, people to struggle through how they feed their kids that month. I got to see people go to church for the first time and have a spiritual experience. I saw people wrestle through how to approach family members who were telling them as we started organizing that, it was their fault, that if they really wanted something to be different, they should just move, that they didn't deserve right where they were to live in a home that wasn't going to harm them. And then all of our folks from what the Eastern Shore folks call the West Shore, the Baltimore County, Baltimore City, those folks, all of those folks started coming over. And we started meeting together and sharing information. So all of a sudden, all those people who were environmental lawyers and nurses were sharing information with people who actually really needed the information, but also really needed to know that there was somebody out there who cared about them. That the narrative that had been pushed about who they were, which was that these folks were not worthy of having clean homes, having safe homes, that they somehow did this to themselves, that there was somebody out there who actually believed them and believed that they deserved something more than what they were getting. So we started to build together, right? So year one, we did tons of research. Year two, we started building relationships. And 2.5 years in, we won 3 rounds of clean water testing from the town, from the county, and then from the state. Cases. And a commitment from the town to close down the failing waste system and to relocate it. We won from the county the money to do it. We also won an officer designated to that community. Below, ask how people are doing. a commitment. They were gonna drive 2 hours to come to a meeting, to come to an action, to show up for people when they asked. They knew I was gonna do it. Our folks in Baltimore knew as they were, human beings, just looking for dignity and respect. And then, yeah, we did a lot in what, a year and a half? We started organizing the town. This town that had purposely zoned out an entire black neighborhood. We're concerned not just about this water issue, we're concerned not just about this water issue, the black neighborhood, but also some of the issues in this white town that people had never really been able to resolve. We started building across ideological lines because we were just showing up, continuing to build those relationships, and continuing to work through all of those hard moments, all of that tension, and say, you matter to us, we matter to you, how do we move forward together? That's what power looks like. That's what justice looks like.
And I'm going to jump in.
Yeah.
So it is great to hear a story like this. And if you were at the first service, raise your hand and tell me, does it resonate with what we were just talking about? So this is really well tied to what's going on in church. And I'm aware that some of you haven't had a chance to go to the 11 o'clock service and will leave us a little early. But I also want to open up to questions because we are a group that loves to dialogue.
Oh, yes.
And then finally, I want to make sure I say, we're going to work together next week, Sunday, at what we're calling a social justice retreat. And Hannah is our facilitator. You can see all this. It's recorded, and we'll be sharing the video of this event with other people. So some of you had to come in late because the service went long. Some of you have to leave early to go to the next service. But I do want to open it up to question and answer. And I want to do that with great gratitude to you.
Yes, I would love to answer questions.
Okay,
Thank you,
good.
Pat.
You bet.
Thank you. Okay,
Sunday is 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock here. You're all welcome, and as Pat said, Hannah's going to be the organizer, facilitator. So please plan to come. Know what you're talking about.
repeat that for the folks who are online. First, next Sunday at 2 o'clock, right here, First Unitarian is where we will be doing our Social Justice Council retreat. Come one, come all. And I've seen in Milwaukee say though, is that I'm still meeting people in congregations. And MICAH is actually gearing up to do something similar in 2026. So what I'm anticipating is that as I start to build deeper relationships with you all, and as our congregations start to build deeper relationships in this moment, some of that stuff will come up and we'll be able to organize together. So yes and no. He had his hand up first, and then I'll go to you.
So I'm going to the 11 o'clock service, so I apologize if I'll be walking out in a minute
okay.
or two. But I was intrigued by how your journey got started, and you were talking about food injustice. And I tend to think dialectically, and one argument I might hear, looking at the intersection of decreased funding for things like SNAP and the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again, that I could imagine that some people on the other side might say, why don't they just use their SNAP benefits to buy blueberries and broccoli?
Well, first I would say, there are a ton of people who do not receive SNAP benefits. There are tons and tons of people who are right there in the middle. I think the term for it was like working poor, where they earn too much to be eligible for government assistance, but not enough to actually live. And my family is right there in the middle, right? So, even though my parents both worked full-time jobs, they had 3 kids, they weren't able to afford fresh blueberries there were so many things that we couldn't afford. And so I think what we're seeing right now is more along the lines of certain political ideologies.
Run through America from the beginning of people making a lot of money off of people that are starting in slavery. And that's how we started. And this program is really a good history of how that has continued to the present. And then we see what's happening now is Trump is focusing on crime, you know, the last of the symptoms when all these other things are out of whack. So I always like to think of Clinton saying is the economy stupid. So we had a great socialist system here in Milwaukee, but once your economic base gets really weak, it's really hard to deal with.
So for those of you online, this gentleman was commenting on food justice in Milwaukee, especially around the recent Kroger Pick and Save closures, and how there is a program, what was the?
It's called Throughline, it's an NPR program.
Throughline, which is a program on NPR focusing on what poverty looks like on a more general scale, but how it connects to food insecurity. Yeah, and connects to the history of America, looks at poverty across America, and how all of those things play together, especially right now in this political climate where we're seeing the current administration focus more on crime than the underlying factors that cause crime. So that was that gentleman's comment for those of you who are online. Okay.
You may be aware of this, but MICAH was instrumental in getting that store in Milwaukee. It started out as a Jewel-Osco store. Many years ago, I was somewhat involved in that. This probably is going back 20 years or so. There was nothing there. And through a lot of hard work, that Osco store materialized. Then eventually it became a Pick and Save. And unfortunately now I see that end. But I wanted you to know that MICAH was a big part of that getting established.
Thank you. Yeah. So are there any more questions? I'll take one more because I want to catch a little bit of the service. No? All right. Well, thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure. Awesome. Okay. Can I? Okay. And thank you to everyone who was visited online. Okay. I'm gonna leave that there.
We'll see you Sunday. I was on the Zoom.
No questions, but I'll save it for the retreat.
Cool.
For that